Dr. Zixtel looked at the data screen with 6 of his eyes, while his other 4 watched the space around the research station. The numbers made no sense. In just 6 months, 14 star systems had gone completely dark, not destroyed by war or natural disaster, but simply gone. No signals, no life, nothing but empty space where billions of people once lived. The Etherian scientist touched his communication device with one of his thin silver fingers. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago, but he still could not believe what it said. An unknown species was moving through the galaxy, destroying everything in their path. The attackers called themselves the Vorthach, and they seemed unstoppable. Zixtel had spent his entire life studying different alien species. He had seen creatures that could breathe fire, others that could phase through solid matter, and even some that fed on pure energy. But nothing in his experience prepared him for what the reports described. The Vorthach were not just aliens. Were nightmares made real. The creatures stood 10 feet tall, covered in what looked like living metal that changed and adapted to any weapon used against them. Their ships could appear and disappear at will, moving through space in ways that broke every law of physics the galaxy knew. Worse yet, they seemed to grow stronger with each world they destroyed, as if they were feeding on the death itself. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the human exploration ship New Frontier. The vessel was not large by galactic standards, but it was well built and reliable. Jake had been exploring unknown star systems for 8 years, mapping new worlds and making contact with alien species. It was good work, peaceful work, and he enjoyed it. His crew was small but skilled. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter served as his second-in-command and strategic officer. She had a sharp mind for tactics and could solve problems that would puzzle most people. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez kept the ship running smoothly, always finding ways to fix things that should not be fixable. Dr. Amanda Brooks was there, scientist, specializing in alien life forms and cultures. The New Frontier was currently 3 days out from the nearest inhabited system, charting a cluster of planets that might support life. Jake was reviewing the survey data when the emergency signal came through. The message was broadcast on all galactic emergency frequencies, which meant it was serious. Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen, calling from the communications station. "Captain, we're receiving a priority alert from the Galactic Council. It's marked as a galaxy-wide emergency." Jake felt his stomach tighten. In his 8 years of exploration, he had never seen a galaxy-wide emergency alert. Put it through to the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge fall silent. It showed a world that had once been green and blue, covered with cities and forests. Now it was gray and lifeless, its surface scarred as if something had drained all the life from it. The planet looked like a dried-up fruit, empty and hollow. The voice that accompanied the image belonged to Council Speaker Morden, a dignified alien from the Centauri Republic. His normally calm voice shook as he spoke. "All ships in galactic space, be advised that we are facing an extinctional-level threat. An unknown species identified as the Vorthach has begun systematic destruction of inhabited worlds. They possess technology that appears to violate known physical laws and weapons that adapt to any defense." The image changed to show a Vorthach ship. It was massive, dark, and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The hull appeared to be made of some kind of organic metal that moved like living tissue. Just looking at it made Jake feel uneasy. "The Vorthach have destroyed 14 star systems in the past 6 months," the speaker continued. "Each attack follows the same pattern. They appear without warning, ignore all attempts at communication, and systematically strip all life from inhabited worlds. Our combined military forces have been unable to stop or even slow their advance." Dr. Amanda Brooks leaned forward in her chair. "Captain, this is impossible. No species could develop this kind of technology without leaving some trace in the galactic database." "Where did they come from?" Jake shook his head. "I don't know, but we're going to find out. Lisa, set course for the nearest council station. We need more information." As the New Frontier changed course, the emergency broadcast continued. More Images appeared on the screen, showing the aftermath of Vorthach attacks. Entire civilizations reduced to empty shells, their populations simply gone. The attackers left no survivors, took no prisoners, and seemed to have no interest in conquest or resources. They simply destroyed and moved on. The most disturbing part was how they were getting stronger. Intelligence reports suggested that each world they destroyed somehow made their technology more advanced. Their ships were adapting faster, their weapons were becoming more powerful, and their ability to appear and disappear was improving with each attack. Back at the research station, Dr. Zixtel was analyzing the latest data when his assistant burst into the laboratory. The young Etherean's normally pale blue skin was dark with fear. "Doctor, we're receiving evacuation orders. The Vorthach fleet has been detected moving toward our system." Zixtel felt his heart skip a beat. There were 3 billion people living on the planets in this system, including his own family on the homeworld of Seraphim. "How long do we have?" "Estimated arrival in 47 hours, his assistant replied. "All civilian ships are being ordered to evacuate immediately. The military is setting up defensive positions, but..." He did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what had happened to the last 12 military fleets that had tried to stop the Vorthach. The evacuation began immediately, but it was chaos. There were not enough ships to carry everyone, and panic was spreading through the population. Families were separated, entire communities were left behind, and the lucky ones who found space on evacuation ships knew. They were leaving their homes forever. Dr. Zixtel managed to get his family onto one of the first evacuation ships, but he stayed behind to help coordinate the scientific evacuation. The research station held data from thousands of species, information that could be crucial for understanding the Vorthach threat. He could not let it all be lost. The human ship New Frontier was still 2 days away when the attack began. Jake Morrison and his crew watched the reports coming in, feeling helpless as another civilization died. The Vorthach ships appeared exactly as predicted, emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. The battle was over in 6 hours. The Etherean Defense Fleet, one of the most advanced in the galaxy, managed to damage exactly 0 Vorthach ships. Their weapons simply passed through the enemy vessels or were absorbed by their living metal hulls. In return, the Vorthach unleashed weapons that seemed to drain the life from everything they touched. Lisa Carter monitored the communications channels, listening to the final messages from the dying fleet. "Captain, they're reporting that their weapons are having no effect. The Vorthach ships are adapting to everything they throw at them." "What about the evacuation?" Jake asked. "About 40% of the population made it out," Danny Rodriguez reported from the engineering station. "But the Vorthach are hunting down the evacuation ships. They're not just destroying the planets anymore. They're chasing down survivors." Mitch felt anger building in his chest. These were not warriors fighting a war. These were civilians trying to escape certain death, and the Vorthach were hunting them like animals. "Can we reach any of the evacuation ships?" "There's one ship broadcasting a distress signal about 6 hours from here," Lisa replied. "It's a research vessel with about 200 survivors." Jake did not hesitate. "Set course and increase to maximum speed. We're going to help them." The New Frontier pushed its engines to the limit, racing toward the distress signal. Behind them, the Etherean star system went dark, another victim of the Vorthach advance. Somewhere in the galaxy, ancient civilizations were packing up there, entire cultures and running for their lives. The age of galactic peace was over, and nobody knew how to stop what was coming next. The New Frontier arrived at the coordinates 6 hours later, just as the distress signal was getting weaker. Captain Jake Morrison could see the damaged research vessel on the main screen. The ship was barely holding together, its hull cracked, and leaking atmosphere. Small fires flickered along its sides where the metal had been torn open. "There," Lisa Carter pointed to a section of the ship. "I'm reading about 200 life signs inside. The ship's main power is failing, and their life support won't last much longer." Jake nodded to his chief engineer. "Danny, can we dock with them?" Danny Rodriguez studied the readings on his console. "It's going to be tricky, Captain. Their docking systems are damaged, but I think I can make it work." Give me 15 minutes to prepare our systems. While Danny worked on the docking problem, Dr. Amanda Brooks scanned the research vessel with her scientific equipment. What she found made her face go pale. Captain, I'm detecting some kind of energy residue on their hull. It's unlike anything I've seen before. The readings suggest it's some kind of bioenergy signature. Bioenergy? Jake asked. Living energy, Amanda explained, as if the weapon that damaged their ship was somehow alive. The residue is still active, still trying to break down the ship's structure at the molecular level. Lisa Carter looked up from her station. Captain, we're receiving a communication from the research vessel. It's Dr. Zixtal, from the Etherian research station we heard about in the reports. The image that appeared on the screen showed a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin and multiple eyes. Dr. Zixtal looked exhausted and frightened, but he was clearly trying to stay calm for the sake of his people. Human vessel, this is Dr. Zixtal. We are grateful for your response to our distress. Call, our ship is failing, and we have many injured aboard. Can you help us? Jake stepped forward.
Doctor.
This is Captain Morrison. We're going to get you and your people out of there. Prepare your survivors for evacuation. Dr. Zixtal's relief was visible even across the species barrier. Thank you, Captain. But I must warn you, the Vorthach ships may still be in this area. They have been hunting evacuation vessels. You're putting yourselves at great risk. We'll deal with that if it happens, Jake replied. Right now, let's focus on getting your people to safety. The docking process took 20 minutes, with Danny Rodriguez working carefully to connect the two ships without causing more damage to the research vessel. When the connection was finally secure, Jake and Amanda Brooks led a rescue team aboard. The damaged ship. The sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. The research vessel's corridors were filled with injured and frightened survivors. Many were families with young children, scientists who had never experienced violence, and elderly beings who had lived their entire lives in peace. All of them carried the same look of shock and disbelief. Dr. Zixtal met them at the airlock. Captain Morrison, I cannot express how grateful we are. We have been drifting here for 18 hours, watching our systems fail one by one. As they helped the survivors move to the new frontier, Dr. Zixtal told Jake what had happened during the attack on his home system. The story was worse than the reports had indicated. The Vorthach ships appeared without warning, he explained. They emerged from what looked like tears in space itself. Our defense fleet moved to intercept them, but their weapons had no effect. The Vorthach ships seemed to absorb our energy weapons and adapt to our projectile weapons. Amanda Brooks was scanning some of the injured survivors with her medical equipment. Doctor, I'm detecting the same bioenergy signature on some of your people. It's like they were exposed to some kind of living weapon. Dr. Zixtal's multiple eyes showed deep sadness. The Vorthach weapons do not simply destroy, they drain life force itself. We watched as our defense ships were hit by their weapons. The crews did not die quickly. They were drained of life energy over several minutes, and we could hear their screams over the communication channels. Jake felt his anger growing. What about the planet? What happened to your homeworld? Gone, Dr. Zixtal said simply. The Vorthach ship surrounded Seraphim and fired some kind of beam weapon at the surface. Within hours, our beautiful world was gray and dead. 3 billion people lived there, Captain. 3 billion souls. And now there is nothing but empty rock. The evacuation continued for 2 hours, with the human crew working alongside the Etherian survivors to transfer supplies and equipment. During this time, Amanda Brooks continued studying the bioenergy readings. What she discovered made her extremely worried. Captain, she called Jake aside. I've been analyzing the energy residue. From the Vorthach weapons, it's not just alive, it's intelligent. The energy signature is actually learning and adapting even as I study it. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means the Vorthach weapons are not just tools, they're living entities that can think and change. Every time they encounter a new defense, they remember it and adapt. That's why no military force has been able to stop them. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from the bridge. Lisa Carter's voice came over the communication system. Captain, we have a problem. I'm detecting spatial distortions nearby. Something big is coming. Date. And Amanda rushed to the bridge, where they found Lisa studying the sensor displays with a worried expression. 3 contacts, Captain. They're big and they're coming straight for us. The main screen showed 3 dark shapes emerging from what looked like tiers in space itself. The Vorthach ships were massive, each one larger than a city. Their hulls pulsed with organic light, and they moved through space with a fluid grace. That seemed impossible for something so large. How long until they reach us? Jake asked. 12 minutes, Lisa replied. They're not moving at faster than light speed, but they're accelerating. It's like they're taking their time, hunting us. Dr. Zixtal appeared on the bridge, having finished helping his people settle into their temporary quarters. When he saw the Vorthach ships on the screen, his skin went even paler. Captain, you must flee immediately. Your ship cannot fight these creatures. We're not leaving without your people, Jake said firmly. Danny, how long until we can disconnect and jump to faster than light speed? Danny Rodriguez was working frantically at his console. The docking systems are stuck, Captain. The bioenergy from their ship is interfering with our equipment. Need at least 15 minutes to break us free. We don't have 15 minutes, Lisa said. 10 minutes until they're in weapons range. Jake made a decision that would change everything. All hands, prepare for combat. Lisa, plot an evasive course. Danny, get us disconnected from that ship, even if you have to blow the docking clamps. Amanda. Brooks was still studying her readings when she made a discovery that chilled her to the bone. Captain, the Vorthach ships are scanning us, but they're not just scanning our ship. They're scanning the life signs aboard both vessels. It's like they can sense living minds. Dr. Zixtal confirmed her worst fears. Yes, Dr. Brooks. The Vorthach can detect intelligent life from great distances. They seem to prefer targets with high concentrations of thinking beings. That is why they attack populated worlds first. First Vorthach ship fired a warning shot that passed close to the new frontier. The energy beam was unlike anything the humans had seen before. It seemed to twist space around it, and when it passed near their ship, several crew members reported, feeling dizzy and weak. They're not trying to destroy us yet, Lisa observed. They're studying us, learning about our capabilities. Jake realized they were trapped. The Vorthach ships were faster and more maneuverable than his vessel. They clearly had weapons that could destroy the new frontier easily. But they were taking their time, as if they were curious about these new beings they had encountered. Captain Amanda Brooks said quietly, I think they're interested in us because we're different. Every other species they've encountered has fled in terror, but we're not running. Should we be running? Jake asked. Maybe, Amanda replied. But I think our behavior is confusing them. They're used to prey that panics. We're not panicking. The standoff continued for several tense minutes, with the Vorthach ships circling the new frontier like predators studying their prey. Finally, Danny Rodriguez managed to disconnect the 2 ships, and Jake ordered an immediate jump to faster than light speed. As they escaped into hyperspace, Dr. Zixtal looked at the human crew with something approaching. Captain Morrison, in all the reports I have read, no ship has ever escaped from the Vorthach once they were detected. How did you do it? Jake thought about the question. I don't know, Doctor. Maybe we just got lucky. But Amanda Brooks was studying the sensor logs from their encounter, and she was beginning to suspect that luck had nothing to do with it. The Vorthach had let them go. She had a feeling it was because they were curious about these strange new beings who refused to show fear. The new frontier arrived at Sanctuary 7 3 days after escaping the Vorthach ships. The hidden fortress world was located in a remote star system, surrounded by an asteroid field that helped mask its location from enemy sensors. Jake Morrison had never seen so many different types of ships in one place before. Hundreds of vessels filled the space around the fortress world. There were elegant Etherian research ships, massive Centauri battleships, sleek Silurite destroyers, and dozens of other designs from species across the galaxy. All of them were refugees, survivors of worlds that no longer existed. Dr. Zixtal stood beside Jake on the bridge as they approached the planet. The Etherian scientist had been quiet during the journey, still processing the loss of his homeworld. Captain Morrison, I must thank you again for saving my people. Without your help, we would have died in the cold of space. Jake nodded. Decent person would have done the same thing, Doctor. We're all in this together now. The new frontier was directed to a docking station on the planet's surface. As they landed, Jake could see the organized chaos of a refugee camp that housed millions of beings. Temporary shelters stretched to the horizon. Supply ships constantly arrived and departed, bringing food and medical supplies to the survivors. A delegation met them at the landing pad. The leader was Admiral Krellinon of the Silurite Navy, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His uniform was torn and stained, and his eyes held the same haunted look that Jake had seen in all the survivors. Captain Morrison, welcome to Sanctuary 7, Admiral Krellinon said. I am now the commanding officer of what remains of the Galactic Defense Fleet. We have been expecting you. Jake and his crew followed the Admiral to a large command center. Built into the planet's surface, the room was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all working frantically at computer stations and communication devices. The walls were covered with star charts showing the advancing Vorthach fleet. The situation is worse than our public reports indicated, Admiral Krellinon explained as they walked. The Vorthach have destroyed 23 star systems in the past month. They are accelerating their advance and their technology is improving, faster than we can adapt. Dr. Amanda Brooks studied the star charts with growing alarm. Admiral, at this rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. How many people have you evacuated? About 15% of the populations from the threatened systems, the Admiral replied. The rest, ... He did not need to finish the sentence. They entered a briefing room where military officers and scientists from across the galaxy were gathered around a large table. Jake recognized some of the species from his exploration missions, but many were unknown to him. All of them looked exhausted and desperate. Admiral Krellinon activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red areas marked systems that had been destroyed by the Vorthach. Yellow areas showed systems currently under attack. Green areas represented safe zones, but there were very few of those left. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, the Admiral addressed the room, we have a new ally in our fight for survival. Captain Morrison and his crew are representatives of the human species from Earth. They have direct experience fighting the Vorthach. This statement caused a stir in the room. Several aliens spoke at once, their voices mixing into a confused babble. A Centauri general raised his hand for silence. Admiral, with respect, no one has successfully fought the Vorthach, General Vorthach said. Every military engagement has resulted in complete defeat. Jake stepped forward. General, we didn't exactly fight them. We encountered 3 of their ships and managed to escape. But our scientists made some important observations during the encounter. Dr. Amanda Brooks activated her portable computer and projected her data onto the room's display system. The Vorthach are not using conventional technology or weapons. Are living entities that can think and adapt. Their ships can phase in and out of normal space, and they seem to be able to sense intelligent life from great distances. A Silurite scientist named Dr. Veltar leaned forward. This matches our observations, Dr. Brooks, but we have been unable to develop any countermeasures. Every weapon we deploy becomes useless within hours as they adapt to it. That's because you're thinking about this wrong, Lisa Carter said, speaking for the first time. You're treating this like a conventional war, but it's not. The Vorthach are not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They're hunting. The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Admiral Krellinon looked at Lisa. With new interest, explain what you mean, Commander. On Earth, we have many species that hunt in packs, Lisa continued. They use coordinated attacks. They adapt to their prey's behavior, and they show intelligence in their hunting strategies. The Vorthach are doing the same thing, but on a galactic scale. Dr. Zixtel spoke up from his position near the back of the room. Commander Carter raises an interesting point. We have observed that the Vorthach seem to study their targets before attacking. They appear to be learning from each encounter. General Vorthach looked skeptical. Even if that is true, how does it help us? We've tried every military strategy known to galactic civilization. Nothing works. Jake exchanged glances with his crew members, They had been expecting this question, and they had discussed their answer during the journey to Sanctuary 7. General, maybe that's the problem. You've tried every strategy known to galactic civilization. But Earth isn't part of galactic civilization. We're new here. What difference does that make? Asked the Etherean Admiral. Dr. Amanda Brooks pulled up Earth's file from the Galactic database. The information that appeared on the screen made several aliens gasp in shock. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Amanda read from the file. Gravity is 30% higher than Galactic. Standard atmospheric composition includes 21% oxygen, creating a highly reactive environment. Weather patterns include violent storms, temperature variations of over 100 degrees, and frequent natural disasters. She continued reading. Native life forms include large predators, poisonous plants, disease-carrying insects, and microscopic organisms that can cause fatal infections. The dominant species, humans, evolved in this environment over millions of years. The room was completely silent now. Most galactic species had evolved on peaceful worlds with stable climates and cooperative ecosystems. The idea of a world that was actively trying to kill its inhabitants was almost incomprehensible to them. Dr. Valtar was the first to speak. How is it possible for intelligent life to develop under such conditions? Danny Rodriguez grinned. Very carefully, Doctor, and with a lot of stubbornness. Jake took over the explanation. Humans have been dealing with extinctionally evil threats for our entire evolutionary history. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, disease outbreaks, and predators that hunted us for food. We learned to survive by adapting, by fighting back, and by refusing to give up even when the odds were impossible. But it's not just survival, Lisa added. Humans have been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. We've developed strategies for combat that most galactic species never needed to learn. We know how to think like predators because we've been both predator and prey. Admiral Krellinen leaned back in his chair, studying the humans with new interest. You're saying that your species has experience with the kind of warfare the Vorthach are using? Not exactly, Jake replied. But we have experience with adapting to threats that seem impossible to defeat. On Earth, if something is trying to kill you, you learn to kill it first. Or you learn to avoid it, or trick it, or find its weakness and exploit it. Dr. Zixtel spoke up again. There is something else I have observed. During our encounter with the Vorthach, the human crew showed no signs of the paralyzing fear that affects most species when confronted with them. They remained calm and focused. Fear is a survival mechanism, Amanda explained. But humans learned long ago that panic gets you killed. In dangerous situations, we've learned to think clearly and act decisively. General Mortex was studying the Earth data with growing amazement. Your species has survived multiple extinction events. You've developed weapons capable of destroying your own planet. You've turned warfare into a science. And we're still here, Jake said simply. We're still learning, still adapting, still fighting. That's what humans do. The room erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. For the first time since the Vorthach attacks began, the assembled military leaders and scientists were talking about something other than evacuation plans and defensive strategies. Admiral Krellinen called for silence. Captain Morrison, are you saying that humanity is willing to share your knowledge of warfare with the rest of the galaxy? Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Admiral the Vorthach are threatening to destroy all intelligent life in the galaxy. That includes Earth. We're not just willing to help. We're going to teach you how to fight back. The change in the room was immediate and dramatic. For the first time in months, the assembled beings were not talking about running or hiding. They were talking about fighting back. The training began the next morning. Jake Morrison stood in front of 200 alien military officers in the largest conference room on Sanctuary 7. These were the survivors of the galaxy's most elite fighting forces, beings who had commanded fleets and defended worlds. Now they sat quietly, waiting to learn from a species that most of them had barely heard of a week ago. Forget everything you know about warfare, Jake began. The Vorthach are not an enemy you can defeat with superior firepower or better technology. They adapt to everything you throw at them, so we're going to teach you to think like they do. Centauri Colonel raised his hand. Captain Morrison, how can we think like the Vorthach when we don't understand them? You don't need to understand them, Lisa Carter replied, stepping forward. You need to understand hunting. The Vorthach are predators, and predators follow patterns. They have instincts that can be predicted and exploited. Lisa activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional star map. Look at there! Attack pattern. They always approach from the same direction, always target the most populated worlds first, and always adapt their tactics based on the last battle they fought. These are not random choices. These are hunting behaviors. Dr. Veltar, the Silurite scientist, studied the display with interest. So you're saying we can predict their next move? Better than that, Lisa said. We can make them do what we want them to do. On Earth, hunters use bait to lure their prey into traps. We're going to do the same thing to the Vorthach. The training continued for weeks. Lisa worked with the military commanders, teaching them concepts that their peaceful cultures had never developed. She explained how to use fear as a weapon, how to make the enemy waste resources on fake targets, and how to attack when the enemy thought they were safe. Many of the alien officers struggled with these ideas. General Vorthach spoke for many of them when he said, Commander Carter, these tactics seem needlessly cruel. We are not barbarians. No, you're not, Jake agreed. But the Vorthach are killers, and sometimes you have to fight killers with their own methods. The choice is simple. Learn to be predators or become prey. While Lisa trained the military officers, Dr. Amanda Brooks worked with the galaxy's scientists on developing new weapons. The laboratory was a maze of equipment from dozens of different worlds, all focused on the same goal: finding a way to hurt the Vorthach. The problem is that we're thinking about this backwards, Amanda explained too. A group of researchers. We're trying to build weapons that can overpower their defenses. Instead, we should build weapons that turn their defenses against them. Dr. Zixtel looked confused. How do we turn their adaptive armor against them? Amanda smiled and activated a computer simulation, by forcing them to adapt so quickly that they can't control the process. Look at this. The simulation showed a Vorthach ship being hit by a series of different weapons in rapid succession. Each weapon was completely different from the last, forcing the biometal armor to change its structure again and again. If we hit them with enough different attacks fast enough, their armor won't be able to adapt properly, Amanda continued. It will try to defend against everything at once and end up defending against nothing. An Etherian scientist named Dr. Colvin studied the simulation. This would require perfect coordination between multiple ships using completely different weapon systems. Exactly, Amanda said. And that's something humans are very good at. We've been coordinating complex attacks for thousands of years. Meanwhile, Danny Rodriguez was working with engineering teams from across the galaxy, retrofitting their ships for the new kind of warfare they were planning. The work was brutal and exhausting, but Danny approached it with the same determination he brought to every impossible task. These ships were built for exploration and peaceful contact, he explained to a group of alien engineers. We need to turn them into weapons that can survive what's coming. The modifications were dramatic. Elegant exploration vessels were stripped of their luxurious quarters and scientific equipment, placed with armor plating and weapon systems. Comfortable passenger ships were converted into assault craft that could carry troops and supplies. Into battle, the alien engineers were horrified by what they saw as the destruction of beautiful machines. A young Silurite engineer named Kellanox watched sadly as Danny's team removed the crystal observation deck from a graceful science vessel. Chief Rodriguez, this ship was a work of art, Kellanox protested. You're turning it into an ugly war machine. Danny paused in his work and looked at the young alien. Kid, I've seen what the Vorthach do to beautiful things. They turn them into dead rocks. Would you rather have an ugly ship that can fight, or a pretty ship that's going to be scrap metal in a week? While Kellanox thought about this for a moment, then picked up a tool and continued working. The first test of their new tactics came sooner than expected. A Vorthach scouting force consisting of 5 ships was detected moving toward a refugee convoy at the edge of the safe zone. Admiral Krellinan assembled a strike force of 20 ships. It's all modified according to human specifications and crewed by beings. Trained in human tactics, Jake Morrison commanded the strike force from the bridge of the New Frontier. The alien crews were nervous, but they had trained hard and were ready to try something that had never been attempted before. Remember, Jake broadcast to all ships, "We're not trying to destroy them in a straight fight. We're going to confuse them, frustrate them, and make them waste their adaptations on worthless targets." The battle began exactly as Lisa Carter had predicted. The Vorthach ships approached in their standard formation, confident in their superiority. They had destroyed dozens of fleets using the same tactics, and they expected this encounter to be no different. They were wrong. Instead of meeting them head-on, the refugee fleet split into multiple groups and attacked from different directions. Each group used completely different weapons and tactics, forcing the Vorthach ships to adapt to multiple threats. Simultaneously, Lisa Carter coordinated the attack from her position on the New Frontier. Group Alpha hit them with energy weapons. Group Beta switched to projectiles. Group Gamma used the new biodisruptor weapons. Keep them guessing. The Vorthach ships tried to adapt, but their biometal armor couldn't keep up with the rapid changes. For the first time in the war, Vorthach ships took significant damage. Their organic hulls flickered and changed as they tried to defend against attacks that kept shifting and evolving. Dr. Amanda Brooks monitored the enemy's bioenergy signatures from her science station. "It's working. Their adaptive systems are overloading. You can't process this many different attack patterns at once." But the most shocking moment came when one of the Vorthach ships did something unprecedented. It retreated. The massive vessel, damaged and confused by the coordinated assault, broke off from the battle and fled toward the edge of the system. The remaining Vorthach ships hesitated, their formation breaking apart as they tried to process what had just happened. In that moment of confusion, the refugee fleet pressed their advantage, launching a coordinated assault that drove off to more enemy ships. The battle lasted only 30 minutes, but its impact was immeasurable. For the first time since the war began, a galactic fleet had not only survived an encounter with the Vorthach, but had actually forced them to retreat as the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. The refugee fleet erupted in celebration. Aliens, who had known only defeat and despair for months, were suddenly cheering and embracing each other. Dr. Zixthal appeared on Jake's communication screen, his multiple eyes bright with excitement. "Captain Morrison, we did it. We actually hurt them." Jake nodded, but his expression remained serious. "This was just a scouting force, Doctor. The real test will come when they send their main fleet." Admiral Krellinan's voice came over the fleet communication system. "All ships return to Sanctuary 7 immediately. We need to prepare for what's coming next." As the New Frontier jumped to hyperspace, Amanda Brooks studied the data from the battle. The Vorthach had retreated, but they had also learned their next attack would be different, more careful, more deadly. "Captain," she said quietly, "they're going to adapt to our new tactics, just like they adapted to everything else." This was just the beginning. Jake looked out at the stars rushing past the ship and thought about Earth. It's about humanity's long history of surviving impossible odds. Then we'll adapt to Amanda. That's what humans do best. Word of the victory spread quickly through the refugee fleets. For the first time in months, beings across the galaxy dared to hope that survival was possible. The Deathworlders from Earth had shown them something they had forgotten. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. The final battle came 6 months later. The Vorthach had built a massive structure in the center of the galaxy, a dark fortress made from the remains of conquered worlds. The structure was huge, larger than most planets, and it pulsed with the collected life energy of trillions of beings who had been consumed by the Vorthach advance. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Frontier, looking at the enemy fortress on his main screen. Around his ship, the largest fleet in galactic history was assembled. Every surviving species had contributed ships and crews to this final assault. There were over 10,000 vessels, all modified with human technology and crewed by beings trained in human tactics. It's incredible, Dr. Amanda Brooks said quietly. The energy readings from that structure are off the charts. It's like they've built a machine that runs on the life force of entire civilizations. Dr. Zixthal, who had become Jake's scientific advisor, studied the readings on his portable computer. Captain, our intelligence suggests that this fortress is not just a weapon. It's the heart of the Vorthach collective consciousness.
And
can destroy it? We might be able to break their coordination. Admiral Krellinen's voice came over the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Krellinen. Today we fight not just for our own survival, but for the memory of every world the Vorthach have destroyed. Today we show them that the galaxy will not go quietly into the darkness. Lisa Carter was coordinating the battle plan from her station on the new frontier. The strategy was pure human thinking, a direct assault on the most heavily defended position in the galaxy. Every other species in the galaxy would have called it suicide, but humans had been attempting the impossible for thousands of years. The plan is simple, Lisa explained to the fleet commanders. We're going to hit them with everything we have, all at once. No holding back, no reserves, no retreat. The Vorthach expect us to be clever and sneaky, because that's what we've been. Doing so, we're going to do the one thing they won't expect. We're going to charge straight at them. Danny Rodriguez was monitoring the engineering systems across the entire fleet. The ships had been pushed beyond their design limits, loaded with weapons and armor that made them barely recognizable. All ships reporting ready, Captain. The modifications are holding, but we won't be able to maintain this level of power for long, Jake nodded. We won't need long, Danny. This battle is going to be decided quickly, one way or another. The assault began with a coordinated barrage from every ship in the fleet.
Ow.
Thousands of different weapons fired simultaneously, creating a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Energy beams, projectile weapons, biodisruptor fields, and experimental devices all struck the Vorthach fortress at the same time. The fortress responded with its own weapons. Massive bioenergy cannons that could destroy entire ships with a single shot. But the Galactic fleet was ready for this. They used human evasion tactics, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to target them effectively. First wave successful, Lisa reported. We've breached their outer defenses. The fortress is adapting, but slowly. It's too big to change quickly. Amanda Brooks was monitoring the bioenergy readings from the fortress. Captain, I'm detecting something strange. The energy patterns inside the structure are becoming chaotic. It's like our attack is disrupting more than just their defenses. The second wave of the assault targeted the fortress's power systems. Danny Rodriguez had identified weak points in the structure where concentrated fire might cause critical damage. Human engineering principles suggested that even the most advanced technology had failure points if you knew where to look. Target the junction points, Danny broadcast to the fleet. Those are the structural weak spots. If we can overload their power grid, the whole thing might collapse. The Vorthach defenders fought back desperately, their ships emerging from hidden bays inside the fortress. But they seemed confused, disorganized. Their usual perfect coordination was breaking down as the fortress itself began to malfunction. Dr. Zixthal made an important discovery as he analyzed the enemy's behavior.
Captain?
The Vorthach collective consciousness is stored inside that fortress. Our attack isn't just damaging their technology, it's disrupting their ability to think as a unified entity. Jake realized what this meant. They're becoming individuals again. The collective is breaking apart. The third wave was the most dangerous. Jake led a strike force of 50 ships directly into the fortress's inner chambers, following corridors. Made from the fused remains of destroyed worlds, the mission was to reach the center of the structure and plant Amanda's experimental biodisruptor device directly into the Vorthach, collective consciousness. The journey through the fortress was like traveling through a nightmare. The walls pulsed with organic life, and the corridors were filled with the screams of the billions of minds trapped within the collective. Jake and his crew had to fight their way past Vorthach defenders who seemed more desperate and panicked. With each passing minute, the collective is fragmenting, Amanda reported as they moved deeper into the structure. Individual Vorthach minds are starting to break free from the group consciousness. They're experiencing individual thought for the first time in millennia, and it's terrifying them. They reach the center of the fortress to find a massive chamber filled with swirling bioenergy. At the heart of the chamber was a structure that looked like a giant brain made of living metal and captured souls. This was the core of the Vorthach collective, the source of their unified consciousness. Danny Rodriguez and his engineering team worked frantically to install Amanda's device. While Jake and Lisa held off the Vorthach defenders, the creatures seemed different now, less coordinated, more afraid. Some of them had stopped fighting entirely and were staring around in confusion as if seeing the world clearly for the first time. "Device is ready," Danny reported. "Captain, once I activate this thing, we'll have about 5 minutes to get out of here before the whole structure collapses." Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same determination that had carried humanity through countless disasters. "Do it!" The biodisruptor activated with a sound like reality tearing apart. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The collective consciousness that had bound the Vorthach together for millions of years began to unravel. Individual minds that had been part of the group for so long, they'd forgotten their own identities, suddenly found themselves alone with their thoughts. The fortress began to shake as the bioenergy that powered it became chaotic and unstable. Corridors collapsed, power systems failed, and the organic walls started to decay. Jake and his team ran for their ships as the structure fell apart around them. "All ships evacuate immediately," Jake broadcast to the fleet. The fortress is collapsing. They barely made it out in time. The Vorthach fortress imploded in a cascade of released energy, taking with it the collective consciousness that had driven the species to consume the galaxy. The explosion was visible from hundreds of light years away. It's a brilliant flash that marked the end of the Galactic War. In the aftermath, something remarkable happened. The individual Vorthach, freed from their collective consciousness, stopped fighting. Many of them seemed confused and lost, like people waking up from a long nightmare. Some approached the Galactic fleet with what appeared to be surrender signals. Dr. Zixtel was among the first to make contact with the liberated Vorthach. Through careful communication, he learned their true history. They had once been a peaceful species, much like the other races in the galaxy. But millions of years ago, they had developed collective consciousness technology to solve their problems more efficiently. Over time, the collective had grown stronger, while individual identity had grown weaker. Until finally, the collective had become a single, hungry entity that consumed other minds to feed its own growth. "They're not evil," Zixtel explained to Jake. "They're victims." The collective consciousness trapped them just as much as it trapped the minds of the species they consumed. The war was over, but the work of rebuilding had just begun. Liberated, Vorthach helped the galactic survivors locate and free the minds that had been absorbed into the collective. Billions of beings who had been thought dead were restored to individual consciousness. Though many needed extensive help to remember who they had been, Jake Morrison and his crew returned to Earth as heroes. But they carried with them a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. Earth's harsh environment had given humans something unique: the ability to remain individuals even under the most extreme pressure. Where other species sought harmony and unity, humans had learned to value the chaos and unpredictability of individual thought. The galaxy began to rebuild, but it was different now. The species that had survived the Vorthach War had learned from humanity that diversity of thought and stubborn individualism could be strengths rather than weaknesses. They had discovered that sometimes the best way to survive was not to work together in perfect harmony, but to embrace the messy, chaotic, beautiful complexity of different minds thinking different thoughts, as the new frontier headed home to Earth. Jake looked out at the stars and smiled.